Why do the maps on Gary's Mod always feel somewhat unsettling? Well, it's not exactly sure, but I do have some theories why it feels like someone is watching you when there's no one else around. It's definitely a strange topic, but I just wanted to share my ideas with you and explain why it feels like we're playing in Lavender Town. And before I get into those theories, I will quickly explain what Gary's Mod is. Gary's Mod was a game that was released in 2006 by Facepunch Studios. It implements the same source engine used from Half-Life and Counter-Strike to allow players to create their own world. Using these worlds, players are able to host their own servers, using the community workshop and coding to create their own game types. The most common game types are the famous Prop Hunt and Dark RP servers, but there are hundreds of other servers, and the player base is still active. So if you haven't checked out the game yet, you definitely should. So why does the game sometimes feel unsettling? Well, after putting nearly 3,000 hours into the game, I have some ideas. And these ideas are going to come from the Dark RP standpoint, since that's what I'm most familiar with. Some of them may seem kinda out there, but just remember these are theories, so just bear with me. Alright, let's get started. Most community maps, like the Dark RP Dingtown, have an eerie feeling about them. Even with other players around, something doesn't seem to feel right. But the first theory is something called the backroom theory. And what this is a subconscious feeling of being trapped, not being able to escape something. But that's not the full definition of the backrooms. As stated, the backroom theory is a dream, and people who experience it are actually in a coma and have the same never-ending nightmare as all the other people trapped within the backrooms. Though it may seem silly to connect these two together, an out-of-this-world theory and a video game map. However, this idea comes from the minimal areas feeling dreadful in some way that everyone feels when they walk into an empty room. And what the minimal area is a sense of fear that something isn't right within an open room by yourself in silence, with only the sound of ambience around you. And it starts to make sense when you directly tie this idea of the backrooms to what we see in game. The reason I say this is because the scenery of the backrooms are strangely familiar to most community maps. They are nothing but fluorescent lights and doorways, waiting for someone or something to fill this empty space. Another reason is because of melancholy, an unexplained sadness, especially when seeing these empty streets and unknown buildings. Even with players being around, there's always a sense of feeling empty, and this is because we are constantly surrounded by this emptiness, empty places, empty spaces waiting to be occupied by builds. And since most community maps are meant to be populated, it makes sense why it doesn't feel normal when they're empty, and that is, they aren't meant to be. The funny thing about melancholy is it's not tied to anything specifically. However, it is extremely expressed in a specific environment or art piece. A really good example of this is the video game Dark Souls. The environment itself is both light and dark, desolate and beautiful. Especially in community fan arts within Dark Souls, you can feel the melancholy. And with these environments, we have similar environments and experiences within Gary's Mod. We have different varieties of builds, community maps, different environments, different feelings that both show light and dark. So in the end, it kind of makes sense why we may feel unsettling when we explore the maps on Gary's Mod. And I feel like this next theory is definitely going to explain why it feels uneasy when we're exploring these maps alone. Why it feels like something is going to jump out from the shadows. And that is because of the lore itself. And when I say the lore, I mean of course the origins of the textures, some of the models and materials in which they come from. A lot of these textures and models used to create most of these custom worlds actually came from Half-Life. And Half-Life by itself is supposed to be a scary game. The textures were designed to be scary. They were designed to be gritty. They were designed for a world that isn't supposed to make you feel happy, but they were instead designed to make you feel like a scientist fighting off an alien invasion within a dystopian world. This is somewhat transparent when we use these entities and models in creating our maps. We just don't realize it. We don't realize that we're taking a little bit of the storyline, a little bit of the writing, and putting it into our own world, putting a little bit of creepiness and putting it into whatever we create. Or maybe it's just a combination of all three of these things, giving us a unique feeling that we don't get from other video games. A feeling that something isn't right, even though everything is completely fine. However, nothing is for certain. These are just my theories. The game could just simply be haunted by a primordial being. Just kidding. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you for watching.